Okay, Councilmember Kirk Radfield, can you ascertain that we have a quorum present?
Yes.
Quorum being present, I now declare this meeting open, and I'll ask if Lonnie Waters, our Director of Development, would bless us with an invocation.
Lord, we just give you thanks for all things. Lord, thank you for our workers, our staff, everyone that puts into making the city what it is, the administration. We thank you for all of those. We thank you for the military. Thank you for our governments and working together with us at the county. We give you praise and glory for that. Lord, we ask you for all these blessings and give you credit. Thank you. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Lonnie, Councilmember Lonnie, would you lead us in our pledge of allegiance, please?
Sure. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Council, you have in front of you tonight's agenda. I will entertain a motion at this time that we adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
And a second, please. Second. Have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Any questions by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And our agenda is adopted. And for the benefit of those here and not here, this is our first time to have a meeting, and I cannot tell you how long that we're no longer having a Zoom component. And it feels really good to be back to the days that we are used to and look forward to it. Item 5 under new business, public hearing. Tonight is a text amendment of the City of Jasper zoning ordinance, section 94-96D1. And I will ask Brandon Douglas, our city manager, to bring this to us.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and council, and for the public, I will take my mask off. I'm fully vaccinated. And, I can no longer hide the ugly, so I apologize. This is a public hearing, and Mr. Mayor, this is a staff-driven initiative whereupon we want to look at a couple of amendments to the zoning ordinance. We did have a public hearing this past Tuesday before planning and zoning. The packet of information contains the staff analysis along with the action taken by the Planning and Zoning Commission members. I'll touch on the staff analysis momentarily, but we did give the report. P&Z did hear the report. There were no public in attendance, therefore a motion was called for and it was unanimously approved to recommend to you all in the affirmative. The text amendment specifically pertains to section 94-96, subsection D, number 1, relative to fenestration. At the time of the creation, with the hard work by the committee and staff and consulting firm, it is very difficult at times to understand what the implications are to all these different components. This text amendment is designed to eliminate the requirement of fenestration on all building facades. Currently, the way that it reads, all sides of the building would be required to have at least 35% of fenestration spaced out about 20 feet apart. So it's very rigid, and it is something that staff in consultation with the development committee determined that perhaps it was not something that was all that practical and or all that relevant throughout the community. So therefore we have requested to amend that particular sentence to reflect 35% on the all front of the building. That way, that is the more practical aspect that our other surrounding communities adhere to, and I'll let Mr. Waters kind of elaborate a little bit on his experience as the day-to-day development director. But beyond that, the additional text amendment pertains to amending the permitted use section under the Central Business District. You may recall some time ago we amended the permitted use specifically to include breweries. From time to time, it just helps clarify when there is a business model or some sort of venture that's interested and it's not explicitly called out in the permitted use section in the table under 94-50, then we do have a level of autonomy and discretion, but it is a good practice that when we do know that there is something unique and it's tried, true, and tested in other jurisdictions, to go ahead and float the idea of incorporating it into ours, because we most likely will have this business venture in our CBD, which is the wine specialty shop. So we have requested to amend that section to allow for the wine specialty shop as a permitted use in the Central Business District. So those are the text amendments as prepared by staff with legal. And Mr. Mayor, I'll defer to Lonnie to kind of elaborate a little bit on the administration.
Mayor and council, I have spoken personally with 4 different builders that build these type buildings, and none of them have an issue with the facade or anything like that. They don't mind considering doing that if council chooses. It's all the penetration on 4 sides of the building, if it's set to work, all 4 sides are visible to a road. And it creates different kinds of issues for them as builders. And a lot of people don't want to buy it because of different reasons. Some says it's insurance, liability, easier for people to break in, all kinds of things. Plus it's an extra cost, and it makes the building go up, which they've already went up like 45%. I did make a trip and looked at Cobb, Cherokee, and Forsyth counties, looked at many, many buildings, and I did not find one that had fenestration itself in the front. And so that's one thing that helped bring staff to this decision.
Thank you. Any questions by council of these 2 gentlemen?
Mayor, I would like to add on the wine specialty shop that my understanding is that administration is talking to the potential applicant for the wine specialty shop about the requirements that are within the zoning amendment, and whether they'll work with his business plan. And you know, the city doesn't exactly roll over for people, but we do work with the business community to try to have reasonable regulations to allow them to be successful in coming to Jasper. We want to be a business-friendly environment. So I just wanted to note that some of those requirements, as we discussed with the applicant, may get tweaked a little bit, such as the percentage of package sales of wine versus on consumption on the premises sales. Those percentages might change from 60-40 to 55-45 or 50-50, you know, in accordance with what the applicant feels from a business viewpoint will cause his shop to be successful. So between now and the meeting in June, we may do minor revisions just to try to accommodate and maintain our reputation as being a business-friendly city. and help that out. If y'all have any feelings or strong feelings about the percentage of package sales of bottles of wine versus on-premises consumption, then we need to hear that too. But you're directed, I think, to administration and to us has been, let's create a business-friendly environment. And so we're taking that into account in trying to get these regulations in place. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Is that something that could change as the business opens and they get some history? Could that be looked at?
We could change it subsequently, it just takes a zoning amendment, just like we're doing now. So if y'all want to keep it at the 60/40, we can. We are just having those ongoing discussions, is my understanding.
And I don't mind changing it now, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, not many businesses open up and have a real good idea of what that percentage could be immediately. So my hope is that it could be easily changed.
It's good to know that we have options in the future.
And it could be easily changed. And now with the new charter, we no longer have to do 2 readings, so we're able to speed that process up. Since it is a zoning text amendment, you still got to do the advertisement, which, depending on when it comes up, may slow us down a little bit, because you got to have that advertisement 15 days before your public hearing. And, depending on publication dates and when they come in wanting to change, it could take 2 meetings, depending on timing, unless y'all did a special call meeting.
Okay.
But I just wanted y'all to be aware that we're in those discussions, so we may tweak it a little bit between now and the June meeting.
Thank you. And Brandon, I'm assuming now this is a second public hearing. We've had the first, tonight is the second, so there's no action for council at this point. We're just here to listen, and I'll ask for any.
Question is still on?
Yes.
Okay. Lonnie, you said you asked the builders of the building what they preferred?
No, they came to us, we went around and told everybody, the builders, and informed them, give them copies of the ordinance and everything. And then they came back and talked to us about the fenestration. And in our conversations with that, I said, well, what do y'all think about it? Because I wanted to hear. And they said, well, the windows and the extra doors around the building, if you're gonna make us do it on all the sides that's facing roads and streets, then that's gonna create a problem for us to get them built, sold, and everything, because it's gonna increase prices. It's not gonna be as secure for some people who maybe got a welding shop, or they're doing business with antique cars. They don't, there's 2 or 3 businesses that are detailing cars. There's a guy talking about something else that he's wanting to put in up here that does some kind of paint or wrap or something on cars. But he don't want windows, because he don't want people walking by and looking in and maybe see something.
So you're saying the main complaint's the windows, it's not the
The
facade?
windows and the doors, it's not the facade.
So they don't have a problem with facade?
The ones I've talked to said they did not have a problem with it.
Okay.
I've talked to, I think it's 4 different ones.
Okay, also too, have you spoke to any citizens to see what their thoughts are?
I have not. I have not spoke to any citizens.
Okay. That was my question, because I know these type buildings, they can make them really, really pretty,
Yes.
and they can make them really, really ugly in about 5 years.
Yes.
So, I think I'm not worried about the developer and the guy building the building. I'm worried about the citizen of Jasper
Yes.
that owns property and wants to value their property to go up. So I think we need to speak with some of our citizens and get their viewpoints on it.
Okay.
Any
May I add
further,
something, Mr. Mayor?
please?
So we also have had at least 2 committee meetings with Clark Patterson and Lee about the fenestration to get clarification. And I've done a personal search to find tasteful warehouses with fenestrations, and they are few and far between. And basically, if you've seen the new building on, Mr. Copeland's building in the county, the plumbing building, most of the ones with fenestrations on the side are done in a similar fashion, where just the first few feet of the sides have windows, and the back is more like the warehouse.
Oh, I completely agree about the windows, because people, you don't, if you've got materials and stuff, medical stuff, I completely understand, you know, if they want to put the windows up high where people can't, I agree with that. I just want to make sure that we don't have a lot of this bare metal out there that in 5 years, it's got that dusty, you know, it doesn't, they don't seem to hold color as well.
Now, the new ordinance pretty much precludes bare metal as a facade, and if you look at the types of facade that are required, they're high-quality materials, not things that should be deteriorating.
Well, I appreciate that. That's a fine job by the committee.
And I did talk to one builder who is talking to a client, a potential client, and he's wanting to build a building, and all 4 sides will be visible. And he said that this client did not have any problem with the facade, some brick or rock or something. He said he didn't have no problem with that at all. And the front of the building would look like office space and have windows and doors, and the front of it would look very nice. So
That sounds good. I mean, a warehouse is a warehouse. It's got its function. But we also got to be fair to our citizens too. And I think that's a fine job by the committee. Good job, guys.
Any further comments or questions from council? And since this is a public hearing, then we will address everyone in the audience. If you have any comments or questions, this would be a really good time to stand up and tell us. If not, then we're going to thank you for that, and we're going to move down to item B, which is a discussion of the emergency repairs to the water main at J.L. White, for those who may or may not know about that particular situation. So, Mr. City Manager.
Yes, sir.
You will, please, tell us the good story of that particular problem.
It's a good story now.
We'll wait on the bad, okay?
Yeah, what occurred approximately 10:30ish or so, we received notification. It was probably earlier than that, but sometimes I may be the last to know. But about 10:30, we received a report that the water main along JL White, running from Penholster down to the sanctuary, there was a leak. Mr. Waters, Mr. Hall, the whole team mobilized and went out to look at it, try to turn off the valve to stop the flow of water. Fortunately, where the leak was positioned, we were essentially able to make the hospital stay hot with water, by and large. However, I was informed of the history relative to this particular break that occurred, I believe, in 2018, that the depth of the line was such that we do not have the ability, expertise, experience, resources to address that fix. So we turned off the water. We made a temporary line from hydrant to another hydrant to make sure that the sanctuary residential has some water. A couple of the commercial buildings did stay without, but we went ahead and exercised discretion in getting a contractor out here who had the requisite track hoe and trench boxes and experience, and they began around noon, well, about 1:30 on Monday, and by about 8 o'clock, the valve had been open for half an hour or so and did not appear to be any leaks. So we were very blessed and thankful that we would get someone out there to put in a couple of trench boxes, because the depth was about 20 feet or so. You could just barely see Lonnie's head when we went down in there. But there we go. See, sometimes I can get a laugh. But there is a cost associated with having this kind of emergency repair. The original cost was $125,000. However, the enormity of work that our guys did in concert with the contractor reduced it down to $23,050. Additionally, there was nearly $16,000, or specifically $15,500 of credit because of not doing the asphalt repair. The reason we went ahead and did not do the asphalt repair is because I'm in a matter of opinion that we need to address nearly in the immediate, how do we not let this happen again? Meaning alternate ideas of a water line. Because if this were to happen again right at this moment, God forbid if it does, we still do not have the requisite materials, resources to do this safely. Therefore, that's a whole other conversation we'll have, but what I wanted to bring to y'all's attention is that we were fortunate to get this back up and running, and the main thing is running the water business and get the water going back, and that's what we did. So the cost is before you of $86,450. That does appear as though to be all-inclusive, but with anything, I would be seeking y'all's approval up to $90,000 just in case there was something missed. And obviously the balance due is $86,450, and that's what we are obligated at this moment. And then if y'all want me to, I can continue talking about kind of an alternate plan that I'll be meeting with Dr. Proctor and Councilmember Faust Tuesday at 4 relative to presenting you all some more definitives on, hopefully, I knew it was Tuesday at some point, perhaps 4, Mr. Faust. So June 7th, we would have a little more definitive. We are meeting with our engineer at 8:30 in the morning. I thought we'd have a little more info, but I don't want to create unreal expectations, but in my mind, our guys better practice to work on a 3 or 4 foot deep line if it's feasible. So realistically, I'd really like to just do that. And so that's why I kind of deferred off the pavement. Right now, the road is passable in so much as we did a good job of millings and it's compacted. If we meet with the engineer and if there seems to be a very prolonged period of time, my goal is to get maybe a little top coat to put on it just to make it a little easier, smooth ride. But I want to be good stewards and not spend 20, 30 grand and then rip it back up if we decide to do something else with a new line. So, and adding even more layers of complexity to Jasper and our business is supplies and materials. It's not just a labor shortage, but it is a material shortage in so much as if we were to order C900 8-inch pipe, 2,000 feet today, it could be up to 3 months before we receive it. Maybe. And yes, sir.
Question. When you're dealing with the materials, if you were to place an order now, are they requiring a deposit for the material?
We've only gotten one quote, and I didn't ask that question. We were going to ask a couple more quotes on Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. Most of the time, it's upon delivery, received goods, paid in full. But if they were to require it, then obviously we would already received approval from y'all, and so it would be a matter of putting the deposit down to get it here. And like I said, I wanted to have a little more information from our engineer, but I'm almost of the opinion that if $40,000 or $50,000 worth of pipe is received or is authorized to move forward, we're not going to get it any sooner than a month, possibly 3 months, possibly 6 months. And my goal would be if we have a favorable review by the engineer and a design is had, and if we bid it out, we'd at least have a benchmark to shoot for of knowing what the bids would be, because if a contractor who bids on it has pipe on their yard, we might get started much sooner. So whether we were to do it in-house, the pipe we receive, or take it to bid, all I'm trying to do is make sure that we do something as quickly as possible, but being good stewards of money. But that's kind of secondary because we are dealing with the hospital. So,
Brandon, have you had any communications with Denise or Donna Reese or Mary Borley about any of this?
we reached out to Ms. Denise to let her know kind of the basics at the beginning. We followed back up with kind of the commitment of council to get this going by way of having a third party that could be 6 figures cost, but it was what we wanted to do to expedite. And all the while saying that we were going to generate some kind of action in the near immediate to hopefully remedy this, that not to say that there aren't leaks, breaks, etc., but maybe a little more manageable that we do almost daily.
The last time it happened, that area got kind of washboarded pretty bad, and there were a lot of complaints coming from the office, people, doctors' offices and such, and so just want to make sure they know that we plan on fixing it as soon as we can, and I'm sure I'll be fielding some of those from a few particular individuals who like calling me when there's something to fuss about.
Question from a legal standpoint, Mr. Saipan, looking at the amounts here, the original amount would have been $125. They received some credits for the city's help in not repairing the asphalt. When you're dealing with bid versus a motion to approve, the threshold of $100,000 is when we'll hit the bid opportunities?
If you believe that the work is going to be 100,000 or more, then state statutes require you to bid it out. There is an exception for emergency situations, and I think, the water line going down definitely qualifies as an emergency situation.
And I would agree, I know that all infrastructure is critical, but as Dr. Prompter pointed out, that was my main concern, was our medical facilities. So I certainly believe it qualifies. The pipe that we used to fix this was already on our yard.
Mhm.
So kudos to the staff for having that there, prepared and ready. We didn't have a dry yard, which is phenomenal. I'd like to keep that, that practice in place. That's great.
And to your point, part of what kind of my managing philosophy is our ultimate goal to continue to replace all the aging infrastructure, period. Part of what we have done a good job of is generating enough liquidity to do just that. So we probably have a few thousand feet of pipe on the yard that when we have time, we'll be able to begin installing, replacing. So even if we were to begin the ordering process of 8-inch, and if we were to bid this out, and if it were to be for naught of our pipe, we still have that pipe that we can then utilize in another area in our replacement program that we have really not yet had the ability to take off. So yes, sir.
Correct. What I'd like to address is the agenda as presented. The motion was made to approve as presented, and I do believe this falls under, unless I'm wrong, council can instruct me. With the emergency repair that's been done and pipe was used, it does bring up the necessity, in my opinion, to make a motion for the replacement of purchase pipe. So I would see the need for two motions, one for the approval of what's being presented, but also for an
I
amount to
have two
replace
motions
pipe.
up here, so
Perfect.
that we don't have yet. Now, one thing I did want to clarify, so we have this fixed, but we know how deep that pipe runs. And so looking at an alternative to change that pipe from where it is, or leave the old pipe where it is and run an alternative route, then what time frame is, like we as a city are at risk for that, what time frame would you estimate? Because if we wake up in the morning and there's another leak, we're going to spend another $125,000 or whatever it takes to go get it fixed. We have no choice. So what's the quickest way for us to do this as a city that will reduce our exposure to what could be another very large bill?
I hope to know after 8:30 tomorrow.
After 8:30 tomorrow.
Because rather than we have some really good staff, but I am going to defer to an engineer. Sometimes I play that and an attorney, but I'm not qualified. But I do want Lamar with Turnip Seed to essentially affirm that yes, TN here, run it, TN, hit the service lines and be good. I don't want to set expectations that it's going to be that simplistic, but I'm hoping that's what he says, and then get a design, and then we can at least float it out for bid, just to see what's out there.
Well, the way I look at it, and I'll just tell you, I think for safety reasons of our employees and also for the citizens and the hospital, but I think we need to see about getting that shallow, like you said, between 3 and 4 feet. I think we need to really stress that, even if it does cost, because if it's going to cost us $100,000 every time it busts, that's a cheap fix. And also too, just the safety of our employees, as long as none of them get hurt. You know, we get somebody hurt, you know, that's too expensive. We need to make sure that we worry about our employees too.
I think at the same time, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I was in on a conversation that will also be looking at additional fire hydrants in the area.
Yes, what we'd like to do is, because one of the points was, you look out there, there's a couple of fire hydrants, but they're near the building hidden, and what we would do is put 2 fire hydrants more on the street level at the new line, hopefully. So part of whatever we would be ordering, if you all want us to go that route, now obviously if you prefer to just say, look, just hold off, let us know June 7th what the engineer says. But talking to Charles today, he seems to think that one quote he received, just one thus far, was $40,000 of the 2,000 feet of C900 8-inch with all the fittings with 2 fire hydrants. But there again, I don't have any definitive, and so I don't want to set unreal expectations other than to say that we're going to use the pipe.
How about an alternative backup source for the hospital? Is that being considered?
That's what we're going to talk about, because that's another, hopefully by June 7th, not that I'm going to have the design, but at least to say, here's what our exposure is, here's what to be thinking about, as well as to the residential community too, to ensure that if we need to bore under Salem to loop that. So yes, we're going to definitely pursue that.
Good.
Any further questions by council? At this time, council, I entertain a motion that we approve up to $90,000 for the invoice that we have to pay for the work that was done out here on an emergency basis at J.O. White.
So moved.
And I need a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the amount of $290,000. Do I have any further discussion from council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and approved. I need a council another motion to approve that we spend up to $50,000 in pipe materials that will be stockpiled for us for potential use at that location or other locations as needed.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
have a motion and a second to approve
Motion contains all material, not just pipe.
all materials.
Yes.
That's when I said materials.
Perfect.
Okay, motion and a second to approve materials and pipe up to $50,000 as needed to hopefully alleviate the situation out at J.O. White and other places as needed. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. The motion is carried. And at this point, anyone in the audience who has anything they would like to say, since this is a public hearing and I try to end all public hearings on this, any further discussion of anything, please come forward now. If not, then a motion to adjourn would be gratefully accepted by
So moved.
the mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we stand adjourned. Thank you so much for being with us.